I'm happy. Absolutely, I'm happy. I guess getting the recognition of your peers is always something that people appreciate and strive for. News photography is it's a tough one to pin down. I guess the easiest way to explain it is trying to capture something that's happening on the spur of the moment in front of you that is of interest to other people. So whether it be a bushfire or a flood or a sporting event or a grand final or something like that, you don't have a second chance. You've got one go at it. I guess the driver is every time you go to do a job, you've got to walk into it with thinking, what is the best possible outcome? How can I portray this to the best of your ability so that someone who doesn't even read the article or someone who's flicking through the paper sees a photograph and goes, what is that? Wow. So you've got to try and create some genus of interest, whether it's through the composition of the photograph, the colour that's being used, the lack of information or the amount of information in it, and just trying to make it something that catches people's eye and makes them want to look at it further and look into the image to see what's going on, try to understand it. But there's a big difference between someone sending in a pic from an iPhone and having a news photographer on the ground who knows a little bit about what they're doing and are able to collate the image and make it work as a proper image, to make things stand out that need to stand out and to use the right perspectives and get the right impact. It's easy just to take a photo, but it's very difficult to take a photo that works. It's quite often the press photographers that are able to cut through a sea of random general images and be able to produce things that really stand out and have impact and bearing and make people sit back and really take notice of what's happening, rather than just sort of look at the sea of noise in front of them with all the images that float around the internet and this sort of thing. It was almost getting dark outside, and we had a phone call that a young man had been assaulted up at the plaza in Wodonga. So we, of course, went straight up there to see what was going on. Went to the car park and found this young man still sitting a little bit dazed on the sidewalk with a couple of mates giving him a bit of comfort, I guess. And we quickly asked him what had happened, and he gave us this version of events. The thing I particularly like about this shot is actually the colour. Although it's a very graphic and quite confrontational image with the blood all over this young man's face, it's sort of softened by the colour of the sunset behind, and then just the normality and tranquility of just a normal car park with nothing going on. All of a sudden there's this guy standing in front of me with blood all over his face. So it's a quite a strong photo. What would be a very normal scene is all of a sudden a very extraordinary scene with a combination of subject matter and colour. Wayne Sheppis, I remember this man. He spent about 400 hours getting his body tattooed, which I find quite amazing. We took him into the studio for this to get the most impact out of it. We've shot it technically as best as possible to get every fine detail, and so people can see every little nuance of colour and shape and texture in his tattoos. This is a photograph of the Melbourne Storm players who came up to Willow Park in Wodonga and provided a coaching clinic for young rugby players in the area. Shot down low to get the storm clouds in behind as a bit of a parody with Melbourne Storm being Melbourne Storm. Little were to know that just a couple of months later the whole thing would blow up in their face with the salary cap debacle, etc., which actually adds more weight to this image. There's the storm in the background is fast approaching. There's nothing they can do about it. I had the opportunity to fly up to Sydney and meet with Kim Hollingsworth. She's from Wodonga. She went up to Sydney and became a prostitute up there and then turned into police informer. We had the opportunity of spending an afternoon with her. Actually an afternoon and an evening. We spent the afternoon at a farm having a chat and getting to know her and this sort of thing. In the evening she took us into the Cross. This is a place that Kim used to work. She knows very, very well. The owners know her incredibly well, of course. We walk back in here, she's greeted with open arms. There's hugs and kisses all around and smiles like a long-lost friend. Just placing her here without going inside, just putting her at the doorway, gives us enough information to say that this is what her past was. Leading to the stairs is behind her now. She's not doing that currently, but it just gives that colour and character of where she's been in her life. Being news photography, we are often called on for road accidents, traffic accidents and things like that. It's quite often not a pleasant part of our job. We get to see people in a great deal of distress and harm. But it's one of these things that, again, unless you see it, unless it's presented in front of you, it's those things that just gloss over and people don't take any notice. So one of the jobs of a newspaper is particularly with road accidents and so on, so people can see the impact, see the damage, see what's happened to other people. And hopefully through that it will eventually sink in that there was one point where I thought all my Christmases had come at once in a not a very good way. There's a photograph of a wooden house burning to the ground with flames engulfing the roof. When I was standing out the front of that, I was using a wide-angle lens. I believe that things like this you need to get in close to sort of bring that personal touch to things. I was standing underneath a transformer box outside the house, an electricity transformer box, which all of a sudden started throwing sparks and blowing up. I didn't realise it. I looked up and I was all of a sudden very hesitant and nervous that thing might just fall on top of me, and I got myself out of there very, very quickly. The photograph here is of the New South Wales Rural Fire Service protecting a house. The house on the right-hand side is completely engulfed in flames, burnt to the ground, and it was an absolute fireball. And I came around the corner and these four guys were standing there with two hoses hosing down the side of this house, and I thought, you are crazy. There is no way that you're going to do anything here. But those four firemen saved that house under amazing odds. I still don't really understand how they did it. They just know what they're doing. They have, in a fire zone like this, you are always second guessing where you are, what's going on, where the wind's going, where the flames are, what potential combustible materials around you, and you always got the eyes in the back of your head making sure that you're not going to get caught out. That's an obvious thing that you go through, but also there's an incredible amount of smoke and ash and flame, etc., all around. You can see from Tony's face here, the level of soot on his face. It's just incredible. It's got right into his eyes, and it's in his hair, and it's in the pores of his skin, and it completely engulfs you. I saw Tony's house burning down, and I saw him just pull up on the ute opposite on the road, and I was, first of all, I was quite hesitant to go up and talk to him because obviously he was undergoing an incredibly stressful situation. At that point I didn't realise it was his house, but you could see that he was certainly fully engaged in the situation. When he came back to the ute and sat down, I approached him and introduced myself and said, look, do you mind if I take some photos while this is going on? He said, no, that's fine, go for your life. He said, oh, by the way, that's my house back there. And for a second there I was pretty much dumbfounded and didn't know which way to point, which way to look, what to do. But I thought, well, if there's anything we can get out of this, we can show people what impact it has and how people are truly affected at the time. And this is one of those photographs that just very luckily captures that. This photograph here is of the house we've seen in a previous image burning down. If you look over the fence on the right hand side, past the tree, you can see a ball of flame. That's Tony's house, the guy sitting in the ute. These guys here tried their absolute best to keep the flames away, keep it down, but unfortunately it just got away. The wind was too strong, the weather was too hot. And unfortunately inside that house there's a couple of dogs that perished, and we could hear them while the fire was burning until it all got far too noisy. The flames are incredibly noisy. There's things falling down, timber crashing, glass blowing out, and then all of a sudden you just realise you can't hear the dogs anymore. And it's it's one of those things that stays with you, I guess.